My name's Tare, and I want to welcome the viewers of this video to Starsdance Mystery School 2024 forecast for the year. And I am being joined by three other facilitators at Starsdance Mystery School who are going to introduce themselves. And we plan to talk about each of the lunar cycles, each of the months through the lens of a lunar cycle, just the highlights, the major energies. We're going to talk about magic. We're going to talk about how we see it and how we approach the energies that are coming our way. And we're all quite different from each other. And that's one of the wonderful things I think about Starsdance Mystery School is that we are a community of people who love to use astrology in our witchcraft. I think all of us consider ourselves witches. I didn't ask first. And we have our own different ways of doing our magic, and so that's going to come forward in our discussion, and I'm really looking forward to that. And we hope that people who watch this will be able to garner some ideas for their own magic and their own intentions as they work with the energies of the year. First of all, we're going to begin with a land acknowledgement that Cabra is going to offer for us.
I just want to take this moment to share some history about where I live now. I live on Turtle Island in the so-called United States in what we currently call Western PA. Before the Europeans invaded, this was a trading hub between different nations. It's a little hard to tell who was here when the French first landed because they very quickly started the Beaver Wars, and it gets very messy after that. We suspect that it was a boundary place between the Seneca, the Susquehanna, and the Wazaze peoples. The Wazaze now have a reservation in Oklahoma. The Seneca have land in upstate New York, and I'm not quite sure what the current status is of the Susquehanna. We do know that at the end of the Beaver War, the Seneca had taken, I don't want to say control of this land, but residence in it for sure. And they were soon driven out by the Treaty of 1812. That treaty then got broken, and they kept getting pushed out of their land. And during the displacement, we had a lot of other peoples move through here as displaced peoples, most notably the Lenape of the East Coast. But we had refugee camps in this area that would have folks from 10, 15 different tribal nations. And so I also want to acknowledge that for the city that I'm in specifically, we also owe a great debt to the Pueblo people because they taught the rest of us how to build the skyscrapers for which our city is now famous. And yeah, we salute their resiliency. We acknowledge their presence. We acknowledge their elders, past, present, and future. And we hope to one day return stewardship of this land to Native peoples. And so it is.
Tara, you're muted.
Thank you for that acknowledgement, Cabra. And I'd like us to introduce ourselves. I'll go first. My name's Tare, and I have been an astrologer since the 90s. And I've been a witch for even longer, and always in the reclaiming tradition, which is a tradition of witchcraft that all of us are familiar with and maybe even think of ourselves as belonging to. And have blended astrology and witchcraft all of that time. I took my first astrology class because I wanted to learn what the astrology had to say about the elements. And I was learning about the elements through learning about my tradition and learning about the magic of reclaiming. And so it's always been hand in hand. Though I do think that it has blossomed in my life even more and more and more. And one of the things that has blossomed, the intersection of magic and astrology for me, is starting this Starsdance Mystery School, which Aurora here and I started together. We co-founded it in 2020, and we have developed a lot of curriculum that we've taught through Starsdance Mystery School. We still have a community of people who use astrology, love astrology. It's open to people who are in reclaiming tradition, who are witches, but also people who are not. It's also a queer astrology that we offer and we kind of ground ourselves in. And in our discussion tonight, we're going to see how our community works, because we approach astrology sometimes in really different ways and different things interest us, but we bring that to our school and we bring that to what we teach. And yeah, I think I love it. I like having that kind of community. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, that's all I want to say about me tonight. So who would like to go next? How about you, Hemlock?
Hello, I'm Hemlock ShiningCoil. I use she, their pronouns, and I am hailing also from Western Pennsylvania. And thank you again, Cabra, for that lovely land acknowledgement. My magical lineage is rooted in the reclaiming tradition and in folk Catholicism. My astrological lineage is absolutely rooted here in Starsdance and Starsdance Mystery School, as well as in the variety of podcasts that I listen to, and in the lineage of Jyotish, that is Science of Light, with Freedom Cole. The ways I connect with my magic and to astrology, for me, is really about finding, this year at least, the best times to nap and ways to embody and cool off the nervous system, and really make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, because self-care is community care. And I'll call on Aurora.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aurora Dawning. I use she, her pronouns. I live in an area often referred to as Pittsburgh, PA, USA, on the land of the Haudenosaunee, as well as the Osage people. Gosh, astrology. I have loved it for, gosh, probably 10 or 20 years, but couldn't necessarily officially call myself an astrologer until maybe the past 8 years or so. I had the wonderful blessing and opportunity of Tere's mentorship. They were my first astrology mentor. I've learned so much from them, and they have really opened so many doors for me to practice and to discover the modalities of astrology that resonate for me. Most specifically, evolutionary astrology, so really working with the nodes of the moon, karmically, energetically, basically the way that our charts come to be are the results of our past life energetic signatures that we can discover, work through in the chart, and basically maximize our superpowers, which is how I refer to every single client's chart. I don't believe in bad positions. I don't believe in malefics. I believe that every position is a gift because it exists and it is necessary. So yeah, I do astrology readings for my clients. I also do tarot, runes, facilitate workshops, usually get invited to festivals and fairs throughout the city, private and public events. Yeah, and I suppose another thing that's probably worth mentioning, a practice that is really important to me and I'm so excited to bring here tonight, is one of the decans of astrology, which have been around for a really long time. I like to definitely reference the book and the human that have helped me learn this, this practice. Austin Coppock, I'm going to put up his ancient book that has been well lived in, sneezed on. There's supposed to be a new edition of this coming out, but basically it is the practice of dividing the signs of the zodiac into 3 parts. Which allows you to get really specific with the energy and why maybe you know an Aries who has some qualities, but not these other qualities. It allows for specificity, and I'm super excited to offer to this forecast basically 24 options for both the new and the full moon based on the decans of astrology. So you'll hear me reference what Austin Coppock says is the potency of the decan in that degree when it comes to the moon, and then some spell ideas. Grateful to be here and super grateful. So I will pass it to Cabra.
Hi, my name is Cabra. My pronoun is they. I am a grimoire sorcerer and Thelemite, but my original training is in reclaiming witchcraft, and ecstatic witchcraft informs my practice to this day. My astrology journey really didn't start solidifying until 2020, so I'm relatively new. I've known about astrology since I was a teenager, but I didn't start seriously studying it until lockdown happened and I started working with Starsdance, and I began to see that particularly in medieval Iberia, there is actually a really strong astrological talisman tradition. There's also a lot of, folk Catholicism and what have you, but the astrological veins of, like the Picatrix, obviously, the Heptameron, the elucidation of necromancy, even some of the Cyprian material will sometimes get a little astrological, but not as much. So I found that resonance and I decided to lean into it. And the branch of astrology that I'm particularly interested in is called electional. And it has to do with when is the best time to do a particular thing. And it can be something as mundane as when do I dig my new irrigation ditch? When do I apply for this job? All the way up to like, when is the best time to contact the Archangel of Venus to, like engage in a mystic practice of trying to unify with the all, right? So it gets it, and it can also vary in scale. Again, it can be as small as an individual pursuit, like when do I propose marriage to this person that I'm in love with, all the way up to really big things like the founding of the city of Baghdad actually was electionally decided. And the chart for when that city was founded is like known and studied. People will also hear me reference the the cranky dead guys. I probably shouldn't call them that because like I build off their work all the time, but it's North African sages who are either Muslim or Jewish or some kind of indigenous North African, like Saul and it wasn't Al-Kindi, Al-Rijal. Al-Kindi was the guy who wrote the book about light. Al-Rijal was the cranky about the sun guy. So if you hear me reference my cranky dead guys, they are the great sages of yore. I just like to be a little tongue-in-cheek because they are cranky and dead and men. So check.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, I didn't really say that much about me, but I've been a practicing astrologer since the 80s. And also, you can find me at Starsdance Astrology to get a reading from me. And you can join our mystery school through our Patreon, which is Starsdance Mystery School. And that would be awesome. We do have an online community where we talk to each other, ask questions, and share what we are noticing and observing, and which is the best way to learn astrology. And we learn from each other and we entertain each other, I think. So that is fun, and I encourage you to join us. So yeah, let's start talking about the astrology of 2024, shall we? Do we feel ready to go? Okay. So we kind of decided the name of this forecast is a new era, or the dawning of a new era. And that feels kind of hokey, I notice, but there's something about 2024 that it actually has a lot about a big newness in it. One of the things that, and I'm just giving an overview right now, and we can chime in about this. Like what does the whole year feel like? What are the things that are just popping out at us? And then we will go month by month, just kind of see what's popping out from each month. But one of the things that's really popping out is that Pluto is going to enter into Aquarius, which it did last year, and then it went back into Capricorn. This year it's also going to go into Aquarius and then go back into Capricorn for a few months. And then at the end of the year in November, we'll finally be in Aquarius for the next 20 years. So Pluto is this planet of digging deep and bringing up the dredges of things that are kind of sometimes very yucky, sometimes very hidden, and it's sometimes toxic. And so I want to talk this year as we go through the forecast about how Pluto has been in this in-between stage of 29 degrees Capricorn and 0 degrees Aquarius. And what does that edge feel like? And what's being dragged up from this Capricorn area of the zodiac? And what can we look forward to with Aquarius, with Pluto in Aquarius? And I'm kind of curious if anybody has a Pluto in Aquarius thing that they're thinking about, like what does that mean to you?
I got one because again, the decans allow you to get hyper specific, and there certainly is an arc. Capricorn 3 is referred to as the throne. So basically, and actually that's going to be one of the first decans of the new moon of the year. So you will hear me mention this again, but it's basically when things have been built and there is hustle and bustle happening, basically the person that is the leader of it all, the one who oversees, unfortunately, sometimes people taking advantage of that. There can certainly be corruption, but it's basically managing and dealing with the operations of the whole, making sure that things work properly when you're a part of an organized thing that just pops up. And the transition into Aquarius 1, which is the exile, is basically getting kicked out of the kingdom. So whether you were the leader or whether you were a participant, it's like, okay, I am here, I am a part of the system, perhaps I have a lot of power, or I am at least feeling safe where I am, and then just kicked into the unknown where, because of radicalness and being authentic, but basically it is the casting out of sorts. So there's definitely an alienation factor that I think is important to mention in the transition and shifting between those two signs.
Yeah, thanks. So why I'm talking about the 29th degree of Capricorn is that's where Capricorn is right now as we're recording this in December. And
Pluto is.
yeah, and we are in a very intense time. I'm relating this Pluto in Capricorn to the US Pluto return that we have just had. And that was at 27 degrees, and that we're still in it. We're still kind of like bringing up the dredges of settler colonialism, the impact of how this country was founded, and the genocide that was committed. I mean, I feel like we're still involved in that project so strongly at this current time, tragically and strongly, that this feels like a Pluto moment. This feels like we're accounting for the things that have been in our pattern, in our shadow, in our history. And so this is one of the overarching things. I think that we're still in this dredging up from the 29th degree. The 29 means the last degree of a sign. And it's called the anaretic degree, and it's considered a malefic degree. It's considered this kind of like, ooh, kind of, what is it about? And I think what you said, Aurora, about, that there's this energy of power, and then there's this energy of exile. And it's kind of like, that's a really interesting thing in the context of, do we stay in the project of settler colonialism, or do we exile ourselves, or are we exiled because we don't? So that's really interesting to me too. Anything else anyone wants to say about Pluto and Aquarius before we move on to some of the other highlights.
Yeah, one of the things I'm noticing is um, the money being moved into the digital space.
Mhm.
So not only like we've had PayPal, we've had Venmo, but like more and more stores, more and more sporting places. Like I was at a sporting event, they're cashless at the stadium. So like seeing money move into the air, quite literally, from a really like Capricornian, and I know like this has been a long trend, but like the like cash system disappearing, and what does that mean for everyone? So one, I mean, it could be great, and also what does it mean for our accessibility and being able to be equitable? Yeah, that's what's coming up for me for Pluto and Aquarius, and what the next 20 years look like.
Mhm.
And I'm sure once we're actually in it, that viewpoint will change. But that's what I'm feeling today.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
agree.
point. Yeah. Um, yeah, feel free to jump in, Cabra, on that topic.
Um, Electional astrology doesn't usually take the outer planets into account, except that mostly because my clients are never like the president of a country, right? Like if Joe Biden calls me up and it's just like, when should I go to what city for my campaign? I'm gonna be like, Uncle Joe, you got the wrong, you got the wrong dude. Um, uh, your money's not good here. But Pluto in Aquarius feels definitely like a moving into an era of ideas, both looking at old ideas and having to pull them apart and like like discarding the ones that don't work, but also like putting together ideas that are going to last for at least another Pluto cycle. I feel like Capricorn has been a time of material changes and material realities. And and looks like Aquarius is going to be a time of like building up the mental and social world that has to overlap the new material reality in order to maintain stable governance, right? And I don't say stable governance to mean like that's a positive. It's just like that seems to be the reality of the Pluto cycle, is that stable governance gets measured in Pluto cycles, and we're moving into the like building the legal and economic concepts of like the next 250 years. I am hoping, I'm really actually hoping that in the next 20 years, the next like Adam Smith or whoever it is that first invented capitalism is going to put out their new book about the new economic policy, because the sooner we figure out what the new centralization method is, the sooner we can start disrupting it. So I have like my one or two economic bros that I keep on like my phone list to be like, what do you think's going to happen after capitalism? We sure are a post-industrial society now. And the second that that name drops, I'm going to read the book and I'm going to be like taking notes on like, this is how we disrupt the new centralization of wealth and power. Hopefully, anyway. Or I can point it out to someone smarter than me who can talk about disruption, right? Decentralization, things of that nature. And I think the thing that I'm excited for, because Pluto is just an amoral reality, right? But the thing that makes me excited about this year is that Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus are going to remain, for the most part, in like a very stable, harmonious, configuration, where it's like there's two sextiles and one trine between the three of them, making a nice little like isosceles triangle. So it just feels like the outer planets are actually going to keep everything calm and stable. And it's all of the like younger whippersnappers that are going to be starting stuff this year. And I think that it's nice to know that like the three slowest movers are taking kind of a break from like giving us a hard time.
Good.
Yeah, I think that tempering with the trines and the sextiles just to Pluto and Aquarius will be really nice. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I just have to say it because it's top of mind. Mars retrograde, Venus retrograde 2.0, a little bit louder and a little bit worse. It's coming. So that's the other big thing I see on the radar for this 2024 cycle.
And that happens in December, so it's a year away. So people can get ready. It's not Mars retrograde happens.
It's not in the summer. It's
Yeah, we have a ways before that happens. One of the other things that we look at, I think, for the overview, like what's the biggie things that happen, and always their eclipses are a part of that story. So we have eclipses in with the nodes. The nodes of the moon are the points in the sky that kind of tell us where an eclipse is going to happen. And there's always 2 sets of eclipses every year, about 6 months apart. And the eclipses this year are going to be in Aries, Libra, mostly. But there's going to be a full moon or a lunar eclipse in, I believe, October. That's going to be in Pisces. So it's a little bit mixing up.
September.
But we're going to have this Aries Libra axis, which in many ways I think is about, well, we can think of in the worst way, war and peace, or we can think of assertion with Aries. That's sort of as a martial energy, and Venus or the Libra energy being more around justice and balance and harmony. And the thing about these nodes are that the north node is in Aries and the south node is in Libra. So the south node being what we're letting go of, or just sort of like composting out, and the north node being what we're eating up or drawing in. And so so that feels like another indication that this could be a year where there are high passions, a lot of energy around fighting. There could be just this assertiveness versus, compliance, like having that choice, like, what's going to be the choice around if we make peace or assert ourselves in some way. So that's another thing. I'm just keeping that energy of Aries and Libra sort of in the mix, and then a little bit about Pisces, because Pisces Virgo axis will be the next the next eclipses that go on. But in 2025 we have one more Aries solar eclipse. So we still have a little bit of Aries. We have a lot of Aries, a lot of Libra this year, and then we kind of switch over to the Pisces Virgo. Is anybody like thinking anything about these eclipses other than they could kind of activate some more like
One thing that I'm actually really looking forward to is the Libra half of this, because I remember one day I heard the most bizarre news story, and every time I hear a bizarre news story, I'm like, what was the sky doing? And about a year or two ago, Sri Lanka overthrew their president. But the way that they did it is that the entire capital city just decided they were done with this president and his shenanigans. They walked up to his presidential palace, like a giant mass of them, looked at the guards and were like, really? And the guards were like, I don't get paid enough. And everybody walked in, they swam in his pool, they ate his food, they worked out in his gym. It was all on social media, and they walked up to him laying there in bed with no shirt on, his sheets pulled up, being like, you're fired. He's like, I'm fired, right? And they looked at it. Neptune had rolled over the north node or something like that, and then the moon had made an angle to activate it, and it was just this like bloodless overthrow of someone who truly was bad at the job. And I'm just really hoping that the Libra half of this is going to bring us some of that energy. Like, I would love to see some Venus node energy at some point of like, we can have change and nobody has to get shot. We can all just agree this is a bad idea.
yeah,
And maybe that makes me a dreamer, but like,
it's nice. Well, there is something with the South Node. There's some old pattern to let go of. And so there is an old pattern around compliance, maybe, or an old pattern around what, keeping the harmony is so that we can be more authentic. So it doesn't mean we don't get to be Libra. It just means we're going to throw out some old patterns around Libra, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, when I think of that polarity too, just even simply archetypally, individually speaking, Libra, partnership, working with other people, Aries, me, autonomy aspect. And I always think of it, as sort of like an opportunity to sort of observe, like, what is the baggage around like my connection to other people? Do I have codependent tendencies? Like, what is it when it comes to Libra's harmony that is actually quite challenging for me? And you can look to your chart to see sort of where these eclipses are going to be rolling through. That'll give you a better idea and focus as we move through them. But I think it's very much, and as we're moving into this new era, Aries is the light. It's the like, we have to be brave. There has to be a willingness to embrace our absolute uniqueness, because every single one of us is necessary. And it is unfortunately, maybe for some of us, going to take a little bit more work, a little bit of, having the fire lit under us, but we're supported. I mean, that's the great thing about the North Node being in Aries, is like, we are being called and beckoned. It's like banging on the drum that like, yeah, it's time for every single one of us to show up the best that we can.
Yeah. So I think it's a revolutionary thing that's going to happen this year is Jupiter and Uranus are going to come into a conjunction in April, which happens every 14 years. And Uranus being this planet of disruption, change, chaos, but also revolution, and Jupiter being this sort of like, this expansive, sort of hopeful breath of air that just gives that a lot of energy. So yeah, there's something that's going to happen, and a conjunction between two planets like this means it's a beginning of a cycle. So it's the end of a 14-year cycle and the beginning of a new 14-year cycle. So that this is sort of like a time to really think about how do we want to show up for the Earth, especially because they're in Taurus. The last time that these two planets came together in Taurus was in 1941, when the U.S. went to war in World War II, and it kind of garnered the end of the Depression that was happening at that time. So, it can just be a time where we really stop and start again. And I think that it will be with Taurus, because Taurus is about money and values, economies. I think that there's quite a likelihood that we will have the ending of some sort of economic reality and a beginning of another one. Yeah, so this will be a big thing that happens this year.
And can you remind us when, I'm sorry if I missed the date, when that will be happening?
I can, it'll be in April, and I can.
It's the 19th.
April, yeah, April 19th. Okay, April has a lot of stuff going on in it. We'll get to that when we get to April, but it'll be in April.
I did want to add one more thing about what is an overview for the year. Because I know we don't want to drag the overview on for too much longer, but this feels like pretty important, which is that Jupiter and Saturn are going to start this year flirting with a lot of sextiles. Like, they're going to come very close to an exact sextile, I think twice between now and the end of February, which is lovely, juicy, beautiful prosperity energy. Like, send out all of your grant requests, send out all of your job applications, LLC yourself, get handyman insurance. I don't know. But partway through the year, they switch over and they start a series of squares. And so for me, I think the same way that the Uranus Saturn square was like the big thing we all kept complaining about and that we kept our eyes on because it was affecting people so badly a few years ago, I think this square is going to be the new square to watch. I think that by the end of the year, we are all going to basically be memeing nonstop about how like dad is fighting grandpa again. I'm definitely going to be planning to try and like get all of my long-term monetary goals in place before the squares start happening. So like I have a couple of training things I want to do. I want to make sure that I am like signed up for them before the squares start happening. And then my goal is that by the time we get out of the Jupiter Saturn squares and into the Jupiter Saturn trines on the other side, that I will be ready to like throw my resume out into the world for like the next part of my career. Boss, if you're watching this, you didn't hear that part. I'm going to keep this job for the next 33 decades. I promise. Hand to God. Right?
Yeah. Yes. So what's going to happen? You know, Saturn is in Pisces. There's mutable water. And right now, Jupiter is in Taurus, which is fixed Earth. So water and Earth do have that juicy sort of relationship of a sextile. But in May, Jupiter is going to go into Gemini, which is a mutable air. And so those mutable signs are squaring each other. And that mutable energy is another part of the year that heats up. So we've been in a somewhat stable, fixed Jupiter and mutable Saturn that have been sort of sextile and, you know, like supporting each other. And now these two qualities, so Jupiter is the expansiveness, the hopefulness, the like, let's take a risk and go forward. And Saturn being like, nope, let's constrict, let's contract, let's be conservative. And so that energy between expansion and hopefulness and contraction and sort of pessimism are going to be at odds with each other in mutable signs, which will create a bit of anxiety, I think. I think mutable signs are more prone to anxiety because we're trying to keep on top of it. We're trying to keep on top of the information or the changes or the, you know, how do we maintain our own security while these forces are battling each other? And so that's just something also I think it's very important, Cabra. I think it is one of the more important things this year. And what's going to happen when you said that the squares start in August, and then there's another one in December, and then it finishes up in June. And the one in June of 2025 will be in the signs of Cancer and Aries. So that those both planets are going to be moving into their next signs to finish off this square, which I think is also interesting. Were you going to say something, Hemlock? No. Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Sky
Well,
Papa's
I think
involved. I'm gonna let Sky Papa do his thing.
Sky Papa. So for you, Sky Papa is Saturn,
Yeah.
and who is Jupiter?
Jupiter is teacher.
Teacher and Sky Papa.
Rambunctious uncle.
Yeah, your rambunctious uncle also works. He's I mean, he makes everything bigger. So
Yeah.
Jupiter says, like, go big or go home. You want to do this outlandish thing? Yeah, go big or go home. You want to do this
And
other
we're
thing?
not gonna want to. We're not gonna feel that
There's
much
no
confidence.
halfways with Jupiter. Jupiter whole ass is +3 everything. Whereas good old Sky Papa Saturn goes, are we really sure about that? And will absolutely pump the brakes and put the kibosh on the merriment, which I think will be interesting, moving them from like this supportive sextile of like, yeah, go big. Yeah, seems prudent to go big right now to like abso-fucking-lutely not.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a challenging square.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move into
We're ready to move into the first
our
month.
year by our month, our lunar
We can
month?
go. We can just say that I notice the first new moon happens on the 11th of January, but before that, we're going to have Mercury stationing direct, and we're also going to have Mars ingressing into Capricorn, which will be a good thing.
I also definitely want to point out that like the first 2 weeks of the year is a great time to take advantage of one of those near miss sextiles. Like they're so close. I'm telling everybody, if you want to apply, like the first 2 weeks of January is a great time. Like send out resumes like it's candy, right? And then I picked my first election of the year that I wanted to share is going to be after the new moon on the 11th, but it is taking advantage of Mars being exalted in Capricorn.
Fantastic.
That's great.
Well, Tara, do you want to drive or do you want
Okay,
to?
I will.
Okay.
So I'm going to list some transits that are happening this lunar cycle. It's the Capricorn lunar cycle, the new moon in Capricorn, which will be in the third decan that Aurora will tell us about. It's not all of the transits, but it's the ones that stand out. And what stands out a lot is that on January 20th, the sun is going to it's going to conjoin Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn. So they're at that anaretic degree. And I'm going to point out transits that happen this year at 29 degrees because it's more than just Pluto. It's also with Neptune and also with Jupiter this year. They're all going to go through 29 degrees. And those are moments to just sort of like, what's going to happen? So on the 20th, the sun will conjoin Pluto at that anaretic degree, and think, US Pluto return if you want. But then later that day, both the sun and Pluto go into Aquarius. So that's that old and new meeting each other. It might even feel like this wave, kind of like two waves meeting each other. So that the 20th of January seems like a really important time. Another thing is that towards the end of the month on the 27th and 28th, Mercury is going to conjoin Mars in Capricorn, and at the same time Uranus is going to station direct, and the sun is going to square Jupiter. So a lot of things are happening on the same day, and that's the 27th. So that could be just a day where a lot of stuff happens in the world or happens to you. It might be a time to I don't ever recommend just hiding out from transits, but when Uranus changes directions, it is a time to go, let's just quiet things down and let it pass. That's one way to approach that day. And then, but immediately the next day on the 28th of January, it's like everyone's playing nice again. And Venus is sextile Saturn, and Mercury is trine Uranus, and Venus is trine Jupiter. And so there's a lot of beginning of something happening and whoa, big changes and disruptions, but then there's sort of a calming that happens. Some of my keywords for this is a new era. That's that Pluto thing. Reflection on the past and future, Capricorn, Aquarius. The future we are accountable to. Understanding the state of the world. So there's a bigger picture we're looking at. There are rays of hope and revolution, and there's getting down to business in that Capricorn way. So those are some of the thoughts I had about that first month. Anyone else, thinking about?
I had 2 elections for this picked out for that lunar cycle. The first one, and these are going to go on the final document on the 17th at Aries rising. I would definitely, you can do things related to houses 3, 4, or 6. 3 is like community and short commutes. 4 is home. 6 is like livestock. So like if you were gonna buy chickens in January, I would do the 17th. But I think that house 3 is going to have the best energy that day. So like at Aries rising, you get your Scorpio or your Aries rising pal or someone who just has like really good Mars energy, and then you hand them like some holy water or some war water, and you have them like throw it on your car, right? Because or whatever it is that you use to like commute, because Mars, I know that this is going to sound like it comes out of nowhere, but every single time weird things happen with Mars, people drive worse. I'm telling you, it's all the steel in the engine. It just like it resonates with the iron or something, right? So I think if Mars is exalted, that seems like a great time to protect your car. So you just get your nearest, veteran armed forces person, child of Mars, Scorpio rising, hand them something and just be like, sprinkle this magical liquid on my car, right? Like at this particular hour, on this particular day, because that will absolutely strengthen your friendship.
Nice. What were you going to say about the decans, Aurora, on this lunar cycle?
So the one thing that I definitely wanted to pick out for the first two lunar cycles is that Cabra did a really good job speaking to like the outer planets, like kind of doing a good job, like bringing some harmony, where the inner planets for the first two cycles are almost all going to be in the same zodiac signs. Like it's really wild. So between like the new moon of Capricorn season and then going into Aquarius season, the sun's going to be in 20 to 29 degrees of Capricorn. Mercury is going to be going through the full 0 to 29 degrees of Capricorn. Venus 0 to 21 degrees. Mars 5 to 27 degrees. So that being said, there's going to be like a turbo charge of like Capricorn practicality, which actually fuels into the first new moon, which is going to be in Capricorn 3, known as the throne. Which is really good energy, Copic says, for seeding allyship with people in power. You know, Capricorns are always about having a friend in high places, you know, like how can we get this stuff done? So for a new moon, seeds that could be good to plant are considering those you have common goals with, starting a petition, making a plan, or organizing a club for a cause of your choice, reaching out to a leader who's an expert in the field that you're passionate about, manifesting roots or a home base for something ambitious, grand visions grounded in reality. You have all those personal planets supporting you. And then for the full moon, it's going to be in Leo 1, known as the spotlight, which is really good for like persona, like how we come off to people, and invoking and banishing, you know, that like egocentric energy. So to invoke, you know, I like to give people options, right? So like you can either invoke during a full moon or you can banish during a full moon, maybe both at the same time. But for invoking, you could, you know, invoke the ideal leader of your mission, like who's the personality that can help you get it done? How do they present themselves? What is their style and motivating, you know, to the crowd? And then banishing the antagonist of your mission. So like who's the enemy, who's like keeping you from doing all that good stuff. And what points of focus, you know, are counter to the intention. What are the personalities who are just sort of killing what is happening around you, but just sort of like pushing them on their way. That's what I had for that cycle.
Nice. Do you have any good rest days, Hemlock? Any good self-care days that you thought
Yeah.
of?
So for me, what I'm seeing is this. I know you said like don't hide, but the 27th, go take a nap. Go take a nap. Also that Venus ingress into Cap on the 23rd feels like a great day to take a nap. Um, just Capricorn likes to work and Venus likes to luxuriate. So I feel like maybe we lean on Venus to encourage us to breathe, you know, into the new year a little bit and just like take a nap. Like ask Venus to help you take a really nice nap that day.
That's good.
Um,
That's good pacing.
yeah.
So I'm going to move on to the next lunar month, which is going to
Great.
be starting in Aquarius. It's 20 degrees Aquarius and it happens on February 2nd. We're going to have documents that all the things we're sharing can be purchased. These documents can be purchased so that you don't have to remember everything we're saying because it's a lot. And in this month, we have, you know, we had in the previous month, we had the sun sort of kicking off Pluto's ingress into Aquarius, and now we have a lot of other planets kicking that off as well. We have Mercury conjoining Pluto the 5th of February. Then we have Mars. Big news. Mars is going to go into Aquarius on the 13th, and on Valentine's Day, Mars is going to be conjunct Pluto. That should be a pretty intense Valentine's Day. I'm gonna just say, Mars can be sexual energy, and so can Pluto, and so there's a lot of energy there. And it feels kind of like I'm just going to go out and say the sexual energy of, you know, long distance sexting. You know, it's kind of like bring in the technology into lovemaking. I don't know, but it's going to be an interesting Valentine's Day. And then on the 16th, Venus goes into Aquarius and activates Pluto. And then on the 22nd, Venus and Mars conjoin at 6 degrees Aquarius. So there's a lot of Venus action and Mars action. It feels kind of hot in a kind of interesting way this month. And towards the end of the month, on the 24th, Venus will square Jupiter. Both of them will be like at 10 degrees. So Venus will be 10 degrees Aquarius and Jupiter will be 10 degrees Taurus. And then on the 27th, Mars squares Jupiter. So at the same degrees. So during February, Mercury, Mars, Venus are really kind of moving through degrees that are really important and activating. They're going to both activate Pluto and then Taurus. And then on the 28th, there is a Sun, Mercury, Saturn conjunction in Pisces. So that is also, it's kind of like there's a lot of Aquarian, technological, kind of mindy kind of energy, intellect, and then we go switch over into Pisces. That'll be a very interesting switch between the Aquarius energy and then the Pisces energy. And also at the end of this lunar cycle, Mercury will conjoin Neptune, which is at 27 degrees Pisces, the end of Pisces. And so we go from Aquarius to Pisces in a big way this lunar cycle. And then at the end, also at the 9th of March, Mars at 19 degrees Aquarius will square Uranus at 19 degrees Taurus. And those two planets, when they are in a challenging aspect with each other, like a square is, it can be very explosive. It's kind of like people's, get real short fuses, and it can range what's gonna release tension. It can be anywhere from a volcano or an earthquake to a revolution to just expressing anger, but there's some kind of releasing of tension that happens towards the end of the March. So there's a lot going on in this lunar cycle. It feels like we're kind of gearing up for some more changes.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, and back in 2022, we had a Mars Venus conjunction in Aquarius. And it's interesting that we're getting that again. I know that they're typically on a 2-year cycle, but they enter Aquarius together basically, right? Like within a few days of each other. So in 2022, it was on the same day they walked into Aquarius together. I always envision them like holding hands and moving out of that Capricorn space. So I just think it's interesting that we're going to feel a little bit of that. If you think back to early March of 22, what did that feel like then versus what it feels like now? And comparing notes, maybe like you have some strong Venus or Mars placements or Aquarius placements that are going to get hit with that again. That might be good to look at. And if you do, take a nap.
Yeah. Try anyway. I think of Aquarius energy as super electric. There's a lot of electricity.
It absolutely is, which is all the more reason to take a nap.
Well, and on that Aquarian note, for the new moon in Aquarius, it's actually going to be further along into Aquarius. So in Aquarius 3, known as the knot. And this is way more like the faith space of Aquarius, which is like, I'm just going to roll with what's happening energy. Sort of like, whatever new world we're creating doesn't have to be scary, like what feels like home in the unfamiliar. So for seeding, opportunities for that new moon is finding comfort in discomfort, no matter what happens, or maybe even committing to the Pearl Pentacle energy. That's like big community stuff, being able to run that energy and to find, whatever rooting you can in that, community. And then for full moon in Virgo, the tree bearing fruit, it's big nurturing earth energy, to invoke some sort of a weird gift, WYRD, something only that could have come from your own unique experience that serves your community. Maybe inviting a nurturing surprise for everybody, because who doesn't love a surprise? I know Aquarians do. noticing bizarre occurrences that have made things so much better for everybody, and sort of allowing yourself to fuel that, to banish any sort of pests that feed on your vital energies. Like think of like those mite energy of Virgo, like what would eat the fruit. To like remove vampires, you know, of what it is that you're trying to do, or the collective's direction, like who's really sucking on that energy. Cleansing your space of leeches of all kinds, energetic, you know, benign or, you know, weird, being able to get some of that old stuff out. And what I have here, I'm going to just read it aloud: to vaccinate your mission of threats of the greater good of all, you know, really being able to sort of fuel and to support by injecting a little bit of that pestness so that you can build up that immunity in order to do your work.
Hmm. You got any magic for this month?
I don't have any elections for this month because it's just a little too messy. And not that you can't get elections during messy times, just that this is supposed to be an overview. And so messy elections take a little more time to explain. But one thing I did want to point out is that for those of us who do observe Lent, which I understand is like a really small amount of the school, but those of us who observe Lent, Lent is going to start. Like Ash Wednesday is the day that Mars is conjunct Pluto.
Oh.
So I think it's really interesting because Pluto is sometimes associated with death in the underworld, and in Lent, right? Like the point is not to get weird about food and shame people, though I understand that is a thing that comes up that's really tragic. It's more to like have a moment to like, before we hit the rebirth of spring, to really pause and reflect on how death feeds life and how you yourself will also one day die. And I just think that actually that's like two hard hitters that are going to be very well aligned with that spiritual journey. So I think for those of us who do observe Lent, it gives us an opportunity to have a Lenten season where we really actually have to do some spiritual growth and learning, whether we do that by taking things away or adding things onto our practice. You know, I think that it's like going to be a really interesting opportunity.
Thank you for sharing that piece. It kind of feeds into that Sun, Mercury, Saturn conjunction in Pisces, the spiritual work that follows that beginning of Lent. That happens on the 28th of February. So yeah, that's an interesting month. I think magically I would look at sex energy as like interesting, you know, maybe if you want to risk it, but also that looking at death, I think that's really really important. And then also when you talked about the Virgo full moon, I thought about, oh, how we need Earth and all this air that's happening in this month. It's kind of like that anchoring Virgo Earth that happens at the full moon can also be something that helps us through that month. And then we come into March. And it's a little bit quieter, but it's also has a lunar eclipse in it. So we're beginning the eclipse season in March, and it starts with the lunar eclipse or at the full moon, and then the next month at the new moon there will be a solar eclipse. So this is a very Piscean. It's a Pisces new moon, and we begin with the Sun conjoining Neptune in Pisces, which is a very uber, super, you know, Piscean kind of experience. Neptune being one of the co-rulers and modern ruler of Pisces, and has a very Pisces energy. Where we can get a little dreamy, a little lost in fantasy. We kind of like lose track of things, but we're also opening. We're opening to imagination and beauty and ecstasy and a sense of oneness. So all of this is here present, possible in this lunar cycle. But we have that first lunar eclipse that's in Libra at the full moon. And I think that we'll see with this, you know, I've been thinking about the last Libra eclipse we had. You know, I was thinking it was when the invasion of Palestine happened, and when, you know, Hamas invaded Israel, and so the whole war started, and that just this idea of what is justice and what is the repatterning of our sense of fairness and balance um, that we need to do. And so that might be another, it might come back up that, what is justice? What is real justice, and how do we, for me, I'm an abolitionist. I think about, like, how do I have a frame of justice that doesn't have punishment in it? And that's a real growing edge for somebody who grew up with punishment as the only way to think about justice. So that might be another thing that we learn about in this particular eclipse season. And then, the sun conjoins Neptune at the beginning, and then towards the end, Venus conjoins Neptune, which is just another kind of opening to that, that sense of, I think it opens our hearts, and I think it also can open us to grief. Neptune is one of those planets I think comes around and asks us what we're grieving. And so this might be a lunar cycle where we experience grief. So anyone else have some ideas about this lunar cycle?
I take a break from doing star stuff during eclipses. It don't sit right with me. I don't know if it's my personal natal chart or if it's just the practices that I get into, but like it never goes well for me when I do eclipse magic. But the first 2 weeks of March are where we start planting things in our basement. And I checked my farmer's almanac reference, and usually if you want to plant things, you want the moon in Gemini, Capricorn, or Pisces. And I think there's going to be like that new moon Pisces might be a good day. The moon in Gemini is going to be a little rough because there's some squares there, but the Gemini is best for if you want to eat or save the seeds. And Pisces is really good for planting flowers. So I don't know if anyone starts any flowers that early, because I feel like mostly we just start our alliums in the first 2 weeks, and then the flowers don't get started until like closer to April. But I think that it would be really interesting not just to plant seeds, but to plant seeds of justice, right? Like if we're going to be moving into something that's astrologically resonant with the start of this like horrible genocide in Gaza, maybe this is a good time to plant seeds of justice, and or even just to plant seeds for the year, and to do so in prayer and thinking very deeply about how the moon's light pulls the blood in the plants and pulls their sap up and down, alongside pulling the tides and all the rest of the things the moon affects. And I think that's going to be not exactly, but roughly around the 16th of March.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like, I'm actually going to offer a different perspective on what we could see here based on the new moon, which is going to be in Pisces 3, known as a cup of blood. But it's like, and I don't know if anybody else has this experience, but every time I'm in Pisces season, like everything feels like a smear, like nothing feels finite. We're going to have so much like Neptune energy. A retrograde is going to be happening. It's just like our ability to grasp and really like connect with reality is just like super low. That's like, but that's not the supportive energy here. So for me, I sort of wanted to give one of two options, because I am also in Cabra's camp. I do not do magic during the eclipses. I feel like it's so important to let the universe drive. Like, don't try to manage it, like spell is an intentional act of consciousness shifting. Like, just let what's going to happen. That's the magic of eclipses and retrogrades, really. But for that new moon, there is an option to do magic then if you'd like, because that is not, there's not an eclipse happening quite at that time, but you could do one of two things with those energies. One, you could seed a daydream. So like committing to something really playful in your internal landscape, planning some art projects, whatever your modality is. Pledge to meditate 10 minutes a day for that whole lunar cycle if you can, which again is like a commitment, but just like sitting with yourself and just like letting the universe in a bit. And even just, detaching from reality playfully, like maybe we don't want to do it all the time, but this is like before spring is really going to get started. It's like that last little bit of like, what is going on inside of me and how is the universe relating to that? The other option is to seed a sacrifice. So like offering a piece of yourself that's no longer needed, asking the universe to cleanse you in the name of your highest good. Doing any house cleaning or smudging and visualizing that energy being cleansed, or composing a release mantra, to support you during the month, because the full moon will be in Libra 1, a sword and a blindfold, very much in that justice energy that Tere was saying. And basically, look to see where it's going to be happening in your chart, and just allow for shakeups, where there's usually peace. Being able to, let the universe drive and let the eclipse magic do what it's going to do.
Hemlock, is your philosophy in Pisces season is to take a nap?
My philosophy for eclipses is number one, take a nap. Like that's like, no, we don't do anything. We don't look at the eclipse. We let that eclipse do its thing, and you need to go take a bath and take a nap. I am fully in the no eclipse magic. I did that experiment once. I don't need to do it again.
Mhm.
Hemlock, can I ask you to maybe take on a challenge for the rest of your nap astrology of the rest of the year?
Yeah,
You can say
sure.
no. Okay. So I think obviously during eclipses, we just pretend like astrology is not real, right? For those 2 weeks. But I think that there's a lot of different kinds of rest. Like there's rest like just sticking to your daily grind. There's rest like, going to a hermitage for a weekend. There's rest like taking your spouse or your best beloved out to a hotel for an evening, right? And I'm getting really curious about like if we're talking about rest days and days to like do leisure or to not do. I wonder if there's a way to think about rest as the inverse of action and like how to rest alongside what's potent, right? I could also be overthinking things because I've been staring at astrology for 5 hours now, but
I said my intention was to take a nap. That can mean whatever you want it to mean. My goal here is nap time. My goal here is rest, whatever rest looks like for you. Whoever's watching this, go and do great. But the shorthand is nap, because I want to honor the time that we have, and we have very wordy witches. So I'm trying to be very clear and concise. I love you. Take a nap during the eclipse.
I have to say that I do sometimes do magic under eclipses, and I absolutely will watch an eclipse because I think, why would I not want to watch that? It's gorgeous. And I think for me, it's about humility. I just did big magic under the last lunar solar eclipse in Texas in October, and we all approached it with humility and with, we're not trying to take over the world, we're trying to witness and be in right size. And it was a good ritual and it was a good magic. So I want to say that I have done good magic under eclipses, and I've bitten off too much. I've thought I was bigger than I was. So I just say humility, and yeah. So that brings me to the next month.
Yes, if I may, my don't look at an eclipse comes from Jyotish. Like it's like the idea of looking at it. And this might actually be the like, hey, don't look at an eclipse because you'll burn your eyeballs from, thousands of years ago when people were like looking at eclipses and then going blind.
No, there are traditional
Wear
cultures that don't
wear eye
really.
protection. Like, protect yourself if you're gonna go do that. Don't be a fool, wrap your tolls.
Yeah. Yes, right. I think stay within the cultural traditions of your ancestors, definitely. That feels like a really resonant thing to do. And I support that. You know, and why I say, why would I not want to look at an eclipse? Because the next eclipse is one that many people in the US will be able to see. It's a total solar eclipse on April 8th. So eclipses, solar eclipses happen on the new moon. So we're talking about the next new moon, the Aries new moon. And I will be traveling across the country in order to see it. I have witnessed one total eclipse of the sun, and it was amazing. And so it's one of those things that it's the wonders of the heaven. I mean, astrology to me is about the wonders of the heavens, and then when I actually get to see in real life something wondrous happening in the heavens, it's awesome.
I'm not surprised that you're going after that one specifically either, considering it's going to be a total eclipse in Aries. So of course it's just like a
It's going
magnet
to be
right there.
conjunct my Mercury, so you can pray for me. I will accept prayers.
Book those travel plans not during the Mercury retrogrades.
But anyway, here we go. This is a very dynamic month. April is probably the biggest, like, bam, so many things could happen because eclipses increase uncertainty. They can be visualized as portals. That's new energy comes through. And it's true, we are not in charge of that energy. It's like, how do I align myself with protection? How do I align myself with humility is a great, for me, a great way to approach an eclipse. But it's going to have an effect on the world because they always do. And we get to that north node in Aries, so it will be this energy of grabbing and taking and asserting ourselves. And so it could be a very volatile time, while we also have a few days later on April 20th, the conjunction of Jupiter with Uranus. This conjunction only happens once. Sometimes conjunctions and these outer planet transits can happen in sets of 3, 4, 5, but this will be just once. And it is a beginning, like I said before, an ending of a 14-year cycle that begins a new 14-year cycle. And we can think about things around Taurus, which is Earth, and we can think around things around change and revolution, and then also that there is an optimism about change, because that's what Jupiter brings, an optimism. It might not be well supported because sometimes we can be optimistic, too optimistic. And as Cabra has said, later on in the year, we're going to get that square with Jupiter and Saturn, and we're not going to feel as optimistic. So this is where we're kind of full of ourselves, and we might really kind of approach this eclipse season with, like, I can handle this, when perhaps we can't or shouldn't. But there is some new things happening this lunar cycle. Another thing that's going to happen in this lunar cycle is that the sun in Taurus is going to square Pluto. So we get some more Pluto activation, that Pluto in Aquarius. And, Mercury is going to station direct. So this solar eclipse will happen when Mercury is retrograde. So that's hilarious. And then after Mercury stations direct at the end of April, Mars is going to conjoin Neptune in Pisces. And so that is quite a different energy, because Mars rules this eclipse. Mars rules Aries. And so we've got this kind of like energy of Aries wanting to just kind of come in and come hard, and Mars is in Pisces, and so it's going to, I think, make it a little softer and make it a little easier to handle. But also Mars will go into Aries. So that Mars conjunct Neptune happens at the end of Pisces, and then it goes into Aries, and that's when that Aries energy just sort of like opens up in a big way, but it's after the eclipse. But it's still in the eclipse lunar cycle, so it's still, I think, we might kind of feel like a rise of energy at the eclipse, another rise of energy at the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and think that things are receding, and then Mars goes into Aries and there's another rise of energy. That's kind of how I'm seeing this go. What do you think about all that?
Well, that new moon eclipse, as I said, is going to be in Aries 2, which is the crown. So noticing where 19 degrees Aries is in your chart, again, from my recommendation, maybe no spell work, just let Aries total eclipse do its thing. Prioritize your self-care, but maybe I also wanted to offer some divination options, because I feel like while divination is magic, it is more of a reflective. Usually, unless you're asking like some really bananas questions or like really committed to carrying out the prophecy, like divination's I think that's a good reflection for eclipses. But you can do divination on sovereignty, and people have the power over your reality. Prioritize self-care, as Hemlock says, take those naps. Right size pride and autonomy. What makes this really interesting, Tere said this is going to be a really dynamic month. The full moon is no exception. It's going to be in Scorpio 1, which is a jawbone. It is like feral desire, like super horny energy, seduction energy, but also like vices energy. So like we get a double dose of that martial, like, okay, new moon eclipse in Aries, which is already like super, super activated. But then you've got this full moon in this like other sign where Mars does really well, but can be like hyper potent. So invoke a delicious meal. I mean, I know kitchen witchery skills can be high. Again, like eating what's good. Enjoying healthy pleasures. Have amazing safe sex. Embrace ethical seduction, trance yourself into the land of desire and feel what it is that you really want. This energy is going to be good for that. To banish any addictive behavior. So if there are any like substance issues or any challenges there when it comes to addiction, some banish energy, this could be a good oomph for that. And releasing healthy attachments to people and things could also be good for that.
Anything that Cabra or Hemlock want to add to this month?
I had an election for this one because once the solar eclipse is over, it's right back to business. On the 11th, when Mercury is Cazimi, I think that when at Leo rising at about 1 p.m., it looks like everything is going to be good for some third house vibes. So what I recommend doing is preparing a little mercurial offering of some kind of cash the day before and picking a cash offering that is like somehow important to Mercury. So if you have a Mercury dime or a $2 bill, some people think that Mercury is associated with the number 8. So getting an offering of $8, you go to your local place of commerce. So whether that's a mall, a main drag, and you just like leave the cash there, right? Whether it's just like a very specific tip to the baristas that work at the coffee shop at the bottom of your office building, or it's like leaving the money on the ground for someone to find and be like, hey, free cash. Like you just walk into the place of commerce, you drop the offering, and then you walk back to the rest of your life a different way than how you came. And hopefully that will seed some like, you know me, I know you, we know each other energy with like the mercurial energies where you live.
Yes, I like that. Thank you for that spell work. I didn't know about that. Anything else, Hemlock? I know you want to be brief.
I mean, there's so much going on in April. I think just relax and enjoy as much as possible. Like when in doubt, like pump the brakes, actually sit and listen and feel what's going on, rather than like if you ever feel like, oh, I'm getting really caught up in all of this energy, like it's okay to say like, okay, actually, and I loved Aurora's like sit back and do some divination. Like actually like take a step back when you can this month. Um no doubt. Take it out.
That's good. All right. So that was a very peak month. The next month is the Taurus lunar cycle. That begins on the 7th of May. And it's a little bit quieter. I mean, it is quieter. What I'm noticing is that there's just a little kind of burst of that Uranian energy with the sun when the sun comes into a conjunction with Uranus on the 13th of May. And then Venus comes into a conjunction with Uranus on the 18th of May. So there's just like the little, like, if Uranus and Aquarius are electric, then there's just like little, sparks going off. Then Venus on the 23rd in Taurus, 29 degrees, we're back to 29 degrees, conjoins Jupiter at 29 degrees Taurus. This is the last thing that Jupiter does in Taurus, is comes into conjunction with Venus. That's usually really, I don't know if we'll be able to see that in the sky, though. I think both those will be in the glare of the sun, because the sun will be close to, yeah, so we're not going to get to see it. So that's too bad, because when Venus and Jupiter are together, they're just gorgeous, but that energy is very benefic. That might be another time to kind of do some magic, especially very much like honoring what was Jupiter's transit of Taurus about for us and for the world. Jupiter lasts, stays in a sign for a year. And so it's leaving that sign. It had a meeting with Uranus, and now it's moving on into Gemini, which it does on the 2nd. And that's going to be quite a new energy. And as Cabra said, there's going to be more of this like square kind of energy developing between Jupiter and Saturn, and it's all mutable energies now. We're going into the mutability activation with this lunar cycle. And another thing is that on the 4th of June, we'll have our Venus cazimi, which means when Venus comes into conjunction with the sun in Gemini. And Venus will be on its way to becoming the evening star. So Venus is the morning star currently, and it's going to disappear from the sky and for a few months, and then come back as the evening star later on. So yeah, those are some things about this month. It's a little electrical, and it's a transition with Jupiter going into Gemini, a lot more air energy.
I have like 3 whole elections for this one. I'm gonna give the long version in the document, but just a short roundup. On May 7th, 9 a.m. Cancer rising. It's 9 a.m. ish, depending on your latitude. I would wash the floor of your bedroom, and if you can add roses to that somehow, that's a really juicy time to like reinvigorate your house, especially the Venusian areas of your house with good Venusian energy. On May 22nd, there is going to be some dream magic that can get done. If you want to play it on easy mode, do it at Sag rising, which would be about 10 a.m. If you want to do hard mode, I would do it at 9 p.m. So either go to bed, either set your bedside table altar up for dream magic at 9 p.m. if you want to invite some like 12th house energies, 10 p.m. to stay out of the 12th house. And then on the 4th of June, on that Venus cazimi day, this is the challenging one. 3 a.m. you want to be awake, get some rose water and spray it once in each corner of your house, and then go back to sleep. That's again probably a hard mode one, so I don't think that a lot of people are going to do it, but there's just so many opportunities to really reinvigorate like the energy of beauty in your life, especially in your house over the course of the month, that like I got a little overexcited, and the details will be in the document.
Thanks.
Yeah, and for the lunar cycle, the new moon, yeah, like beauty galore. Taurus 2, which we have reclaimed. The word topic uses isn't a great one, so we have reclaimed it to a creatrix. It's very like orgasmic beauty success energy and like a very earthly manifestation level. So if you want to do well in something, if you want to succeed in something, like this is I would almost argue the most ripe month to seed that. So anything that you want to manifest your success in, nurturing sprouts of a garden. So like I'm not like a big gardener, but like archetypally, like any sort of putting stuff in the dirt. Is what this new moon is really good for. Should blossom into something pretty at the very least. Trance into what's a gratifying reality might look like for you, if that's not something that you find yourself experiencing regularly, like allowing that to happen. Or offer a gift to the land or to someone who has gifted something to you, just sort of like planting that seed of generosity. One of my favorite things to do. And then as far as the full moon is concerned, like it's a fire full moon, so Sagittarius 1, a poison arrow, but like Sagittarian energy is like super hopeful and like all about delivering like truth bombs, but is really good for lifting fallen spirits, and can like really help banish impediments to your will. So like keep whatever's keeping you away from what it is, that you're succeeding, like this full moon will help support, eliminating those barriers. So for an invocation, invoking morale for the cause of your choice, whether it's whatever you seeded or something totally different. You could raise energy with music or podcasts. So sort of just like raising that, that pleasurable energy that maybe you seeded, during the new moon, or commit yourself and your attention to somebody who motivates you. Or being the change, that old adage is really good for that. Banish deterrence to your cause, reclaiming your power from antagonists. This is another option for you to do that throughout the year. Use fire to burn ties from unsupportive energies. Don't light things on fire. I'm not telling you to do that. They'll burn things or people. But use fire as a part of your magic when it comes to severing some of those ties. And cutting the cords, energetic cords that are keeping you from success, self-limiting behaviors, and leave space for truth to supersede your ego.
That sounds amazing. I want to give you space to say something if you want, Hemlock. How do you greet Taurus energy? What is your just
This is self-care in the form of buy yourself flowers, get yourself a nice bath bomb. Like usually I'm not in the like, usually I'm very much in the like self-care is actually a habit and we need to be like, it's a daily practice. This time, like allow it to be a little more luxuriating. So like make the nice bath, put flowers in the bath, right? Like do the like luxuriating things, get a massage, do the things that you've been putting off that are self-care. Maybe a little spendy, be a little spendy. It will come back. Yeah, that's where I'm at with this one.
Okay.
And truly, like I don't have any specific dates. I think that it's just the vibe.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm picking up on that vibe for sure. Okay, let's go to Gemini, the Gemini lunar cycle, which begins on June 6th. And so Gemini is mutable air, and we are going to really notice this mutability. Mutable signs want to learn. They want to absorb information, integrate it, adapt to it, and broadcast it. So we're going to be noticing that kind of impetus as we see Jupiter moving into Gemini. And so the sun will be in Gemini this lunar cycle, and that will be squaring Saturn. And, it'll be squaring Saturn close to Saturn's the degree where Saturn is going to station retrograde soon. And so there's something about Saturn in Pisces that we're gonna learn a lot more about what Saturn's transit of Pisces is this year. And I think this month also, I think in March when we had all that Pisces energy, there was a lot of learning about Saturn. This is another month where we're learning about what Saturn is telling us about the limitations through a Pisces lens, which is super confusing to me because Pisces flows and doesn't keep its boundaries well at all. Just one of the beauties of Pisces, and Saturn is like, we're going to keep boundaries. And so we're going to be learning about the edges of our heart, the edges of our grief, our edges of our compassion, and maybe get healthier with how we hold our boundaries while we also hold our compassion with each other. I really hope that that is one of the outcomes of Saturn in Pisces. But we'll be learning about that. And, you know, this year, Neptune gets to the last degree of Pisces. It goes all the way to 29 degrees, then it stations retrograde. And next year in 2025, it actually goes into Aries, which will be a big deal. It'll be like Pluto going into Aquarius this year, like Neptune going into a new sign, because it stays in a sign for 14 years. So we get Venus squaring Neptune at that anaretic degree again, the 29 degrees of Pisces. It just feels like transits that you might think are just ordinary everyday, you know, Venus square Neptune is like bad decisions in love relationships or something, could be a little bit more significant, like a deeper awareness of how we are in our illusions or what we're addicted to, or, you know, our wishful thinking. So that's a little bit of this month as well. It's not a huge month though, as far as like things to be afraid of. I don't think. Yeah. So how about Cabra or Aurora or Hemlock? What do you think about this month?
For Gemini season, I mean, this is Pride Month type stuff. And what actually is super cool to see is that both the new moon and the full moon are supportive for like the heart and core work of pride stuff. So the new moon is in Gemini 2, which we have once again reclaimed as androgyny. So like where the moon isn't like super strong here, like the whole vibe is like being able to hold the polarity of opposites and like allowing multiple truths and multiple existences to simultaneously exist, even if they contradict. So like super queer, non-binary energy. So you could seed queer healing and advocacy, host a webinar to teach allies, you know, like that Gemini, like mental, I'm here to teach you about like the duality of the universe in my experience. Commit to allyship, having difficult or awkward conversations when transphobia arises, like seed in those, you know, conversations when the opportunity arises as an ally. Create mantras that affirm trans and queer existence and experiences, learning about trans history, again, mental, cerebral, and adding to the collective understanding of queer people, like seed in all of that. For the full moon, Capricorn 1, a headless body. This is like super powerful, like primal instincts of the body itself. So like to invoke, you know, safety and resources, fundraisers for LGBTQIA plus people, manifestation of support for those in need, and embodied rituals of like somatic healing and body positivity, like whatever you can connect to like everything below your neck. And I mean, obviously full body, but like really focusing on like the less mental aspects that we did at the beginning of the cycle, to devoke homophobic aggression and violence, rituals that banish body dysmorphia and binding abusers and haters. Like this is like in the very beginning of Capricorn energy, where it's like, whoa, like something has happened here, and I am sensing it in my body and in my environment and my relationship to it. Yeah, lots of good queer magic options there.
Great, thank you.
I only have one election for this cycle on the 8th, Virgo rising. Houses 10 or 11 are both good choices, but I would definitely make sure Gemini is ruling the midhaven, because there just is it's a little picky. But what I would recommend doing is doing something about the way you present yourself in the world. So like, I'm going to be doing a social media refresh this year, and this is probably going to be the day and time that I do it. Like, I have been Steel City Witch for a really long time. The name no longer fits. So this is probably the day that I'm going to choose to like pick a new name, release a new domain, do all of that. It might also be a good idea if you need to refresh your work wardrobe to make that the day and hour that you like set aside the money, like actually put it on like a charge card or something, on like a Visa gift card or something, like earmark the cash to go refresh your wardrobe, or just to like go refresh your wardrobe generally. So like really think about the way that you're presenting yourself, and if you want to change your public face, like that to me would be the luckiest day to do that kind of work.
Oh, thank you. Anything standing out for you, Hemlock?
I don't know. Nothing super caught my eye other than these 29-degree points with Venus and the Sun and Neptune. And for me, that those are just feels like those extra calls to reflect on those days, and maybe, taking note feels like the important thing to do here. Yeah, more than anything else, this month feels inquisitive, and that's feels very Gemini.
Mhm. Yeah, awesome. The next month will be the Cancer new moon at 14 degrees Cancer, and it'll begin July 5th. So the mutability quotient of the signs goes up because Mars is going to go into Gemini this month on the 20th of July. So that means that we get a lot more of Gemini energy, which can be about pollinating and learning and connecting, and yeah, a very busy, active energy. When Mars does that, it's going to trine Pluto. And so Pluto being in an air sign, it's going to just kind of activate that air quality. And it's also because of Jupiter also being in Gemini. It's just a lot of this airy, curious energy. And I would say that what really just strikes me about this is the Mars going into Gemini. It's just going to be a lot of those things, those mental activations. Anyone else?
Tara, is this the month where we get the new moon ahead of the new moon in the same sign as the full moon? Is that this month the changeover happens, or is
It
it the
changes over. The full moon is also going to be in Capricorn. So we get two Capricorn full moons in a row. And so it's the order of the new moon and full moon switch over. There's a pattern where if a new moon is at the end of a sign, the next full moon is going to be at the beginning of a sign that's in the next season. So it won't be the sign opposite the new moon. And this switches over so that the new moons now are going to be in the beginning of the sign, and the full moon will be towards the end of a sign, but the opposite sign. Does that make sense? I don't like to get people bogged down in that, but it does create a sense of order that I like.
But is it this month? Is it this month that
This
that
month,
changeover
this
happens?
month is when
Yeah.
it does that.
So
Yes.
I think for me, like, I also like that ordering better. Um, it's all good, but it's just a preference. And I think that'll be interesting to feel into again. I think it might feel a little, as someone who's a lot of fixed sign placements, feel very orderly, um, which I will like. I think otherwise, feeling that Venus sextile Jupiter on the 21st feels like a delicious day
Uh-huh.
to do some delicious self-care, whatever that looks like, including taking a nap. I will say the sun opposed Leo, the sun in Leo opposed Pluto at 0 Aquarius, take a nap. Like it's the dog days of summer, like just take a nap. That's actually a good a nap day. That's on the 23rd.
Okay.
I know for the rest of the year, I have like all these super specific dates where I'm like, this has to be in the first 3 degrees of Libra, or the chart ruler will wind up in the 8th house, right? Get up at 3 a.m. No, I took a look at what the thing was going to look like for this lunation, and maybe it's the Cancer rising in me, but I was just like, no, build altars, chase the party girls, relax. Like looking at all the, because everything in Cancer is going to sextile the stuff in Taurus, and it's going to trine the stuff in Pisces. So it just feels like a really great month to let go and let God, right? Like try to be home before dawn. You'll be fine.
What do you have to say about these new moon and full moon, Aurora?
Well, so for the new moon, we've got Cancer 2, which is a walled-in garden, very like emotional, watery, but like protective energy. Like sort of how you would protect like the most precious flower, or tender parts of yourself. So this is a really good one for wards and shielding. So like protecting your home and yourself, self-care rituals, rearranging and cleaning your living spaces, and sprucing up your altars, you know, like remembering that like the space around you, your safe spaces, does need to be maintained as time goes on. And this is a really good one for like keeping stuff locked down, but like permeable, right? It doesn't have to be rigid, but like still keeping what is, you know, tender, protected, which Cancer does like to do. Full moon in Capricorn 3. This is the second Capricorn 3 themed moon of the year. So again, that throne energy, remembering that allyship with somebody who's in a high spot. You could invoke ethical leadership and supporting of consensus culture, banishing capitalism and corruption. So like anything when it comes to like people who are not wielding their power responsibly, especially government leaders or, you know, people just within your own communities who just aren't doing the right things, and taking the needs of the whole into consideration. Just sort of like cutting that cord could be a good time for that.
Great. Do you have any elections for this time? Or no, you already said that, Cabra, right? Okay. We can,
Yeah, the Cancer energy won, and I stopped measuring things.
yeah. That's good. So now we go to August. August 4th is the Leo new moon. And what's interesting about this is that Mars in Gemini conjoins Jupiter in Gemini. And then right a couple of days later, it squares Saturn in Pisces, which towards the end of the month, on August, well, no, and the same time frame, Jupiter will square Saturn. So when we've talked already about Jupiter squaring Saturn a few times, but we didn't really mention how Mars is going to be in the mix for the first time, which could kind of emphasize the Jupiter part of maybe we have a little bit more confidence and Saturn has to kind of like punch at us a little harder, or maybe it just kind of eases off this feeling of oppression that we might be getting from Saturn, or we might just be a little bit more aggressive about what we want to be hopeful around. But there is, you know, this mutable Gemini Pisces meeting conflict that's happening. Pisces wants to feel, wants to emote, wants to heal, and Gemini wants to learn and share and connect. And they can get along, and they can also miss each other. So it's it'll be an experiment in that. You know, another thing that is pretty dynamic is that Uranus is going to station retrograde at 27 degrees Taurus. So whenever a planet stations, it gets stronger, and that we will feel that. We will feel that Uranian kind of energy. It's electric energy, and then Gemini energy is also for me electric. All air signs kind of are, especially Gemini and Aquarius. So it's kind of an electric, lively month. That's how I see it.
For the lunar stuff, new moon Leo 2, a crown of laurels, as Copic calls it. Seeding right size pride. The crown of laurels is another very successful energy, but like being seen succeeding. Very fiery, like you done good energy. So you could nurture and experiment with your fashion or your style, give praise and cheer to the people who deserve it, because who doesn't love words of affirmation? Like seed the people who are doing the good stuff. Commit to one brave, authentic act per day, knowing that like the worst thing that happens is you fail. The best thing that happens is that you succeed, and you are succeeding more than you would have if you hadn't set the attention. You could also run Iron Pentacle energy. This is like ripe energy for Iron Pentacle if you're a reclaiming witch. And center self-love for the month. Also, this is really good glamour energy. If you need to like, you want to try a new makeup look, or you really want to like look a specific way or project something, this is good for that. The full moon is Aquarius 3, the knot, a little bit more challenging energy. But you know, Aquarius stuff like invoke, get weird with your people, you know, like you got to be authentic and seeding yourself and your authenticity at the new moon, but then like the full moon comes and like everybody gets to be weird together. Planning a group outing, doing something that all of you love, maybe attending a drag show or a social justice event. Or volunteer your time to support refugees. Again, Aquarian is like very much like the exile, like the people who don't belong here, huge air quotes energy. And then devoke xenophobia and the concept of outsiders, and laws around border control, and just getting rid of like the fear of being different, and allowing yourself to be unique and authentic.
I do have a election for that lunation. It is not a beginner one. On the 2nd of August, when Leo is rising and the sun is still in the first, so right before dawn, so like 6 in the morning, I think it's going to be a really good time for re-blessing and rededicating all of your solar things, which if you are an occultist, you have a lot of solar things. So that's a good time to bust out the frankincense, get up before dawn, face the east, and, you know, rededicate all the stuff, oil your sword, both metaphorically and literally. The thing that I will also say is that the 12th house is about secrets. So if you need to burn a journal, if you need to dedicate something that is going to stay hidden away like a showstone or something like that, this is a really good time to bless the dongle that like not like bless the dongle, sorry, I'm 12, to bless the ritual tool that only very few people see, that they're not going, you don't want them to find, right? Because the moon is in domicile ruling the 12th, so that's like just really great hide things that need to be hidden energy. And other than that, I try not to step on Hemlock's toes, but yeah, the 14th and 15th, just stay home. Just clean your room, take a nap.
It's yes, Mars, and that's Mars conjunct Jupiter energy. Oh, we might learn something new. So stay home and learn something new. Do you have any
all
ways
I
to
see
cope
on
with
this is
Gemini?
full moon and my birthday. That's all that really matters.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I think that this month feels busy.
Yeah.
And when there is busyness, there is also opportunity to say no. And so I think that the self-care here is it FOMO or is it actually desire, and like really feeling into which one of those is the thing. And then if it's FOMO and not actual desire, do you really want to do it?
That's a really
So
good
yeah,
way to describe it.
yeah, let that simmer, and maybe if it is FOMO, take a nap instead.
During a lot of this month, Mercury will be retrograde with all this Gemini activation. So that's also sort of like, slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow
Yeah.
down. Yeah. Okay, so Virgo, we're next sign. We're in September, and it's a Virgo new moon. Um, so we get back to our favorite eclipse season, and it starts with the eclipse season starts with a lunar eclipse. That this one is in Pisces, so a very different energy. It's going to be close to Neptune, which is also in that zone of Pisces. So there is some interesting energy in this lunar cycle around our illusions, our addictions, and our dreams. Our grief, the grief work. I have found grief work to be just sort of the gods are just saying that's you have to learn to grieve and you have to learn to hold the pain and you have to connect with other people as you grieve. Not it's not a solitary we're all alone, but how do we connect in our grief? So there may be more about this in this lunar eclipse season, because also during this month, the sun at 28 degrees Virgo will oppose Neptune at 28 degrees Pisces. And so that just feels like this Virgo and Pisces, I just love that opposition of signs. It's kind of like Virgo being grounded and pragmatic and Pisces being really idealistic and connected to the heavens. And it's just like a synthesis and a combining of those energies, which I think is beautiful. Another thing about this month that stands out is that Venus will square Pluto. Pluto has gone back into Capricorn by now, and they're both at 29 degrees. So there's that 29 degrees. And I'm just really thinking, I'm going to be observing what comes back that reminds me that the US is still having a Pluto return. What comes back to me around the toxicity of our lineage of power and hierarchy and leadership and government. So that kind of stuff will probably come up in this month too. But we do get a nice trine between Mars at 14 degrees Cancer and Saturn at 14 degrees Pisces, and that's maybe an election time for you, Cabra. I don't know, but there is this supportive energy that comes through that.
I do have an election for this lunation. It is not the two specialists trining each other to suck all of the emotional water out of the room. I have too much Cancer in my chart for that. But on the 5th of September at Libra rising, which I think is going to be about, you want to do about 8:45 in the morning if you're at my latitude, but the trick is to wait until Gemini is ruling the 9th house, which I know technical, but that will be a really good time to enter the temple. And when we say temple in this case, we can mean like a library, a university, an airport. It might be a good time to buy airplane tickets to go on pilgrimage. It can also refer to a church or a place of organized worship if you enter into those places. It is going to be a Thursday, so good luck. But that was my election for that lunar.
Hi, Aurora. If you're ready to talk about.
Yep, I pushed the wrong button. I meant to unmute. So for this cycle, yeah, Tere, Virgo new moon, full moon, eclipse in Pisces. So for the new moon, Virgo 2, hammer and anvil, very much like getting it done energy, like hard work vibes. So seed putting in the work, this is going to be really fruitful energy to sort of like whatever you're doing is like really actually, making a difference. So take inventory where you're putting your energy. So like having an awareness of like if you're spread too thin or if you could focus more of your attention in other areas that are more important to you. Create lists on projects that are important to you. Ask for awareness of flaws in your projects. Virgo's really meticulous, really good at like what's not working. Let's focus there. And channel endurance to get your work done because this energy will just keep on going. Very earthly, very hardworking. Full moon eclipse, snow magic, but just look and see where 25 degrees Pisces lies in your own chart. Divination topics, creativity, art, romantic progression over time. you know, just sort of like seeing what's fruited. But again, just feeling those romantic vibes. And yeah, allowing shakeups in your spiritual realms, fantasies, and your relationship to the universe.
I think, thank you, Aurora and Cabra. I think, you know, eclipses are just invitations to lay down. Um,
Mhm.
so do that. Just do that. um, yeah, that's where I'm at with this month. Anytime we're in those eclipse, the 2 weeks between feels really like just really tend to the nervous system in all of the ways. Eat some good food, listen to some nice music.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, then we have the next lunar cycle that is beginning with a solar eclipse, and this is the Libra solar eclipse at 10 degrees Libra. We start off after that eclipse in Libra, which of course will activate things around balance and things around justice and things around relationship. Um, and we then get two planets stationing. We have Jupiter stationing retrograde at 21 degrees Gemini. And then we have Pluto stationing direct at 29 degrees Capricorn. So we have planets get stronger. So Pluto energy is getting stronger, Jupiter energy is getting stronger, and then this Libra energy is getting stronger. Yeah, it's kind of like there could be court cases that are decided at this time. We're coming up to the presidential election, which is going to be just nutsville, I'm sure. You know, and the Supreme Court is going to be a part of what happens, you know, it looks like. So there could be things around that, you know, happening. And I say that with the eclipse being in the justice-oriented sign of Libra, but also Jupiter being about justice, about the court system. So there could be something around that that happens. Most likely there will be. And other things, you know, it's still, we've got Mars in Cancer. So Mars is kind of activating other cardinal signs. We have, you know, Chiron kind of comes into play, and Mars is going to square Chiron. And so there could be marginalized people feeling vulnerable or attacked. That's kind of how I see Chiron a lot of times is how, you know, marginalized people, people on the outside. At the same time, the sun will be opposing Chiron, and the sun will be squaring Mars. So there's a T-square going on in the sky with Mars and Chiron and the sun leading up to the eclipse. Leading up to the election. I can just see the forces of fascism kind of kicking in to oppress trans people in order to, you know, consolidate their base. Fun stuff like that. I hate to say that, but that feels like that could happen. And yeah, so then at the end of this October, we have the sun at 29 degrees Libra squaring Pluto. We get to see the ugly side of power, I think, at the end of this month. And yeah, there's also Venus squaring Saturn, which a square can often be hard, but I kind of feel like we need the square at this time. We need some reality. We need some like commitment to real things, which Saturn can give us. So those are some things that stand out for me about this month.
For the lunar cycles, new moon eclipse Libra 2 links of a chain. Again, no spells, but noticing where 10 degrees Libra is in your chart. Expecting shakeups with contracts and agreements, legal matters, law procedures, domestically or internationally, as well as promises. This is like 2 links of a chain, like what keeps, you know, conceptually speaking, because Libra's air sign, you know, like what's keeping everything together. Those promises and contracts, very much an aspect of Libra. And you could do some divination on your commitments and your vows that you've made, as well as oaths, and where you are and following through on those promises, having an awareness there. For full moon, Aries 3, burning rose. You could invoke some self-love, light a candle to yourself and give thanks for all that you are. Create an altar in honor of your life and growth experiences. So like birthday vibes, energy, altar, you know, just like celebrate your legacy, who you are. Host a bonfire or bardic circle, great time for that. Attend a concert or spoken word poetry event of a group that you love. Burning rose energy is all about like the cause that you're just so passionate about. That's very much the energy of this one. And also maybe do a perfect day ritual. Just plan an entire day based off of all of the things that you want to do. Don't judge it, just do it. You could banish some unhealthy ego, list your fears, guilt, shame, and burn them. Attend or lead a protest of a cause that's important to you. And again, more cutting energetic cords to sources that disrupt your confidence.
Thank you.
I don't have an election for this lunation. I just have a date that like I can't stop staring at the chart. On 10/5 of 2024, Libra rising, there is the weirdest grand water trine I have ever seen. Mars is cranky in Cancer, like the moon is cranky in Scorpio, Venus doesn't like it either. And they're in a trine with like Saturn. So it's like the two specialists, a generalist planet, and then like everybody's favorite ambassador, the moon, are like doing that. And it is gonna be a day. I'm gonna get some popcorn and a lawn chair for that one. Magic? No, just watching.
Popcorn. Hmm.
I don't actually have a read on this month. Libra season always seems to elude me in weird ways, so I'm gonna pass. And I'll see you in Scorpio season.
Yeah, it's going to be wild stuff, I think. Yeah. So our next lunar cycle is Scorpio. It starts on November 1st. And yeah, this lunar cycle, we have Saturn stationing direct. So Saturn gets stronger in the middle of the month. We begin like the first beginning transit that I think stands out is that Mars at 29 Cancer opposes Pluto at 29 Capricorn. This is right before the election, like days before the election. There may be something revealed that we just can't stomach anymore. Maybe. I don't know. And so it just feels like, you know, Mars can activate things suddenly and they just kind of explode or you know, come open. So that could happen at the beginning of the month, right before the election. But, you know, I think the other thing that happens towards the end is on November 19th, Pluto finally enters Aquarius until 2043. So this Mars opposite Pluto at the beginning of the month feels like some sort of like last hurrah of Pluto being in Capricorn. And I listened to a podcast, I can't remember the astrologer's name at the moment because my brain is getting a little tired, who predicted that when Pluto finally left Capricorn for good, the pandemic would be over. So that's an interesting thing. Maybe that will happen. I would like that. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing in this month.
For Scorpio season lunar cycles, second round of Scorpio 1, a jawbone vibe for the new moon. Very much like hungry energy. and can help unravel bonds of desire. So you could see desire, commit to sexual pleasure once a day for a month, list or focus your awareness on your vices, meditate on devil energy, more Iron Pentacle running opportunities, or maybe make a seduction playlist, because who doesn't love that? Then we've got the full moon in Taurus 3, which seems like, again, for like election times, like things could be in disarray. This is sort of like, this is the energy of like, well, we did everything we could. We've, like we planted all of our seeds, but like that storm's coming. Hopefully whatever we're doing to keep the seeds safe is enough. We just gotta hand it over. So as far as invocations, protection, sprucing up your personal space, stringing prayer beads for the cause of your choice, conjuring new ways to cast a circle. So getting creative there, and or saying a prayer for the earth. Devoke fears, releasing control over to the universe, making a list of your fears and burying them in the dirt on compostable paper. Host a solidarity support circle to voice worries of the planet or whatever is going on, like just allowing everybody to come together and to voice those fears so that they can be witnessed and then banished. Yeah, that's it. That's what I got.
Yeah, I think for Scorpio season, I'm really loving the just general sexy, deathy energy of Scorpio season. And so like the words make love not war are coming to mind. So if you can find ways to make love and not war, it could be good for you. You might be supported. I'm really drawn to the sun opposite Uranus on the 16th. That feels potent for something. I don't know. That's what I'm drawn to in this month and what I'll be watching in the month to see how that unfolds. Let's go Satch.
Let's go to Sag. This is the last full lunar cycle of 2024. It begins on December 1st. And in this time, we get what's really stands out is that Jupiter squares Saturn for the second time on Christmas Eve, on the 24th. That is possibly going to be not as supported as the last one. I can't remember what I said, but it felt like there was some support for us during that time. And this time, the second time might be where we really feel like, oh, this is where I have to cut, like my budget. I really need to kind of conserve. I really don't know what the future is holding. That it kind of feels like that a little bit as we end the year. Which isn't like a doomsday. I mean, we need that cycle between Jupiter and Saturn is a really very healthy cycle. Without Saturn, Jupiter just kind of like is that infinite growth idea that is impossible. And, Saturn without Jupiter is just like just depressed basically. And so is a good cycle. I don't think it's going to be necessarily a bad thing that we make an adjustment in those two pieces of our psyche. Anyone else thinking about this?
Just gotta shout out that Mars is stationing retrograde on the 6th. It did hit retrograde shadow back in October, early October. So it is Venus 2.0 electric boogaloo. So feeling into a Mars retrograde might be a little less fun than Barbie movie and Beyonce. It'll be interesting to see what Mars retrograde in Leo feels like at the end of the year. And we always tend the digestive fires at this time. So making sure that you're eating delicious foods that are actually nutritious, not just cookies, like what I've been doing. um, and so don't eat a bunch of cookies and don't eat, and then skip your vegetables. So make sure that you're really making sure that you're tending the digestive fire this month. Um, yeah, there's a lot going on. Eat well.
There's not a lot of good electional potential at the end of the year. Again, whenever you need to do magic, you can find a day and hour. It's just that the generalists follow the sun, right? And so all of them are in like odd dignities. And usually the way that you solve the problem of how to do elections when everything is very messy is to put everybody in domicile, because then you don't have to worry about, well, the sun is in the house of Jupiter, is in the house of Saturn. Saturn is afflicted because they're in fall. Blah, 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 blah. If someone's in domicile, they're in their house, they're in their comfort zone. But if all the generalist planets are in following the sun into like the Saturnian part of the chart, you can't do that. And so if the chart is very messy, when all the generalists move into winter, it's a good time to return, like get grounded and stick with sublunar work, right?
Okay. Thank you.
And then for that final lunar cycle, we've got the new moon in Sagittarius 1, again, another repeat, the poison arrow, which is all about the delivery of sudden truth from out of nowhere. Really good for lifting fallen spirits. So you could see some optimistic enthusiasm, in that Sag season where like the sun is boosting it anyway. Light a candle in the name of hope. Start a self-help book, whether it's maybe writing one or reading one. Composing mantras to excite and motivate you throughout the cycle, or have a trance to meet your will, because why not? As far as the full moon, Gemini 3 and Executioner's Sword, this is all about like, I have thought through every last thing. I have done my research. I have contracted for feedback. I've thought about every last thing. And now I'm making the decision, knowing that I know what's best. This is like judge, jury, and executioner energy all in one spot. So invoke the right decision. Create an affirmation jar of sorts, to manifest those affirmations. Use a pendulum to make choices for the whole day. See how that goes. Conduct some deep witnessing with yourself, or maybe with somebody who you trust and love. Contract for feedback from trusted sources. This is a big one. And make amends where necessary, that it will be ripe for like, I'm going to do the right thing. Devoke uncertainty. Sacrifice your anxieties, aka making them sacred. Again, contracting for clarity from Hermes, or the communication deity of your choosing. That's for that.
Well, thank you, everyone. There is one more new moon on the 30th of December, and it's the second Capricorn new moon of the year. So we have 2 Capricorn full moons and 2 Capricorn new moons. So that tells us something about 2024, I think. And yeah, I loved hearing your magic that you came up with. It was really rich. I mean, and I am also happy that we are putting together a booklet of some of these ideas that we will be able to share with the patrons who sign up for our mystery school. And you can also buy it through our mystery school if you're not a mystery school patron. So you can look for that. And I don't know, I'll offer concluding words for you to say, concluding words if you'd like, but I hope everyone has a beautiful end of 2023 as we move in to 2024. Anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, thanks everybody.
It was a long one for us, but we did it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.